Separation, divorce, and elder law are not the best of holiday topics, but they are a reality for many. We discuss family law with a local family law expert, and we discuss the New Jersey Economic Development Opportunity Act. It's all here on the next Latino Motion. Join us.
Choose quality, value, distinction. Choose Stockton.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation, and Stockton University. This edition of Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is brought to you by the HD Studios at the campus of Stockton University. Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare, healthcare you can believe in. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas. Welcome to Latino Motion, a weekly interview show highlighting issues impacting New Jersey's Latino community while advancing understanding of Latino cultural heritage and contributions to our society. And here is your host, Bert Lopez.
Buenos dias and welcome to Latino Motion. This time of year is centered on family, but for many, these are also difficult times as they deal with separation and divorce. Joining me is a local attorney and author, Lynda Hinkle, to offer her expertise on family law. Lynda, welcome to Latino Motion.
Thank you for having me.
So you're a local attorney, and not only are you involved in the day-to-day, but you're also an author, which is great. I want to talk a little bit about the book. The book is Breaking Up, Finding and Working with a New Jersey Divorce Attorney. Very interesting topic, and although this is a festive time of year for many, the reality is that many people are facing these challenges with separation and divorce. What advice is really the main purpose of this book?
The main purpose of that book is to prepare people for meeting with an attorney, making good choices about how to proceed with their divorce, and being advocates for themselves, not just hiring a good advocate, but also advocating for themselves in the stricture of a lawyer's office. Many people would come into my office feeling very panicked and very scared and unsure of the process, and this book helps them, I think, to be prepared and to ask the right questions and to move forward in a way that makes them feel more secure.
What are the top reasons you should seek an attorney during this time period when you may be going through a separation or divorce?
I always advise people to seek an attorney as early as possible. If you're thinking about divorce, even if you're not really ready to go with it, and many times I've sent people out of my office who really just need counseling or other kinds of support, you need to know what your rights are and you need to know how to prepare. You need to know what kind of money you need to put aside, not just for lawyers, but if you need to put money aside in case there's going to be any problems between getting money from the other person, preparing for what to do with your children, putting away documents that you'll need for the divorce, those sorts of things, and really just knowing how to prepare for the possibility of divorce. Sometimes people will come in and it's already too late. They're locked out of the house, there's difficulties, they're financially in trouble. They haven't prepared even though they may have known for some time that this was coming. And that is not the place to be in. That's not a position of strength.
Oftentimes there is a question as when a marriage starts and when it ends. You would think that that's a pretty easy question, but sometimes a little difficult because of common law marriages and so forth. In New Jersey, there is a defined start and end date.
There is no common law marriage in New Jersey. And even if you've lived together for 25 years and one of you is being taken care of by the other, unless there's a written document that says that you are entitled to money, you're not going to get it. But if you are married, then you're possibly going to be able to tap into alimony under the same circumstances. But as to when it ends, sometimes people will separate for lengthy periods of time. And if they haven't sought the advice of an attorney, they can waive their right to alimony if the court sees that they haven't really needed it over time.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about for single parents going through perhaps getting their kids to college. Maybe the father, the mother's no longer in the picture, but you may want to seek support in terms of getting funding for the child to go to college. What are the options there?
In an intact family in New Jersey, you have no obligation to send your children to college. However, if you are separated, you may have an obligation to pay for that child's college, or at least a portion of it. That is mitigated sometimes by issues such as relationship or the reasonableness of the college experience. So, for example, if your child has gotten D's all through college and is trying to go to art school and you can show that it's not necessarily the best career path, you may be able, under some circumstances, to avoid paying for college. However, if that child is going to a reasonable college, seeking a reasonable degree, you are most likely going to be required to contribute by the court.
So there is no obligation to pay for that tuition to go to college?
If you're still married. If you're still married, you don't have to do a thing. But if you divorce or you're never been married, you may very well be required by the court to contribute.
Let's talk about the visitation or custody of the child, because this is a difficult time of year when you have to split time for the holidays and Mother's Day, Father's Day.
Yes.
What's some of the key things that we should keep in mind?
So a couple things. There's two different kinds of custody. There's physical custody, which means where the child lives. Very often it's a parent of primary residence and a parent of alternate residence, where those divisions can be split evenly or in portions, every other weekend, Wednesday dinner, kind of arrangement you often hear of. But there's also legal custody, and legal custody is almost always joint, and that means making major decisions about the child. But when it comes to custody, what really the courts look at is the best interest of the child, and that really is what parents should be looking at as well. What really works for the children, what makes them feel safe and comfortable and happy. And when it comes to holidays, a lot of times the problem is the children's interests are not taken into consideration and where they're going to be comfortable and happy. The courts will usually impose what's called the holiday schedule, which is an alternating schedule. In the odd year, mom gets the kids on Christmas Day, on the even year, dad does, those sorts of things. But sometimes different families have different traditions and they can split those in a different way if they negotiate it so that the child has the best experience with both extended families.
And to be clear, having that joint custody doesn't necessarily mean veto power.
It doesn't necessarily mean veto power. However, if you have a dispute, if the parent of alternate residence has a dispute with the parent of primary residence, you can go to the court and say, what is in the best interest of the child? And the court can stand in the way of that and make a decision on the basis of that.
So it's up to the court in some of these cases.
If you can't work it out,
if
yes,
you can't work,
which
best
you should
thing
always try to do.
Best thing is to work it out, so you can
Yes.
avoid not only the legal costs by having to go to court. We want to continue this discussion and talk a little bit about elder law as well. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. We continue our discussion with local attorney Lynda Hinkle and family law. And Lynda, we just finished talking about your book and some of the advice you gave for seeking an attorney and going through a divorce, many issues to consider. Certainly, another big important issue is elder law. Our parents, when they need to be taken care of and being able to take care after their affairs. And let's talk a little bit about that. What are some of the key things that we should keep in mind as far as making sure that ourselves, that we're taking care of our children, and certainly perhaps doing a will that will provide the direction once we're unable to take care of our own business?
Well, I actually always advise people to have 3 documents. One is a will, and the purpose of a will is to make sure that your property is properly distributed the way that you want it to be after you pass away. Okay. But also very important is to have a living will and a power of attorney, because that takes care of you in life. Power of attorney gives someone else the ability to make decisions for you, whether you're incapacitated or not in some cases. A durable power of attorney goes into effect the minute that you sign it. Springing goes into effect when you're not capable of doing things anymore for yourself. A living will gives direction to the family about what to do if you are incapacitated and you are ill. And that is hugely important, not just for your protection, but for your family too, because knowing what it is that you want enables them to make choices that would please you, and also takes the burden of them having to make choices that are difficult for you.
It's a little bit of culture within the Latino community in terms of some people don't want to do a will because it's you're basically talking about death, you know, and certainly they don't want to go through that. But it's very common, and it's something that should be natural for people to do as a protection, not just for yourself, but also for your heirs.
Absolutely, and it also enables you to make choices that take some of the decision-making out of your family's hands, which is good in so many ways. First off, because you don't want them fighting. You don't want them to fight about your china or who gets the ring, those sorts of things. If they know what you wanted, that takes some of the angst out of them making choices after you've passed away.
Another issue is, say, the parent does not do that and they're going through dementia right now. What's the process to get the guardianship and basically be able to make decisions for that parent? So
in order to get guardianship in New Jersey, you have to have 2 doctors certified to incapacity, and then you file with the court. The court will appoint a lawyer to the person that is allegedly incapacitated, which that person's money will pay for eventually. And then the court makes the decision based on their recommendation and the doctors about whether A, the person is incapacitated, and B, whether the person applying for guardianship is the appropriate person. If you're going to have a fight on your hands about that, it is always good to have in your living will something that says who you would want to be your guardian if something should happen to you.
Well, certainly you need a lawyer for those kind of things, I'm assuming, or can you do some of this on your own?
You can do it on your own, and if there's no problem or contest between you and your siblings or anyone else who would be considered an appropriate guardian, that's fine to do. But if you have any conflict, you definitely want to have an attorney who can help you navigate some of the legal morass of dealing with these issues.
We're seeing often, way too often, a bit of abuse, particularly financial abuse by one family member taking advantage perhaps of an elderly relative who is not able to make those decisions or are going through some dementia type issues. What advice do you give to protect those type of individuals?
The first thing is, for the individual prior to them ever signing a power of attorney, I'm always going to say to them, who is the person that you trust if you're stuck on the side of the road? Who is the person you trust the most? Don't give it to the person who is maybe your only son, who you think is going to be offended if you don't give it to him, but on the same token, maybe isn't the most trustworthy person. Give it to the person you know is going to look out for your interests. But you can't always know, and sometimes people will still make mistakes. Perhaps they've gotten into debt and they start siphoning money off, those sorts of things. And the important thing for that is to have other family members watching and paying attention to what's happening so that they can go to court if necessary to require the fiduciary to provide information about what they're doing.
And as far as the power of attorney, you could put stipulations on there. So you may be able to have more than one person on the power of attorney?
You can. That does create some difficulties because then every check has to be signed by both parties. If there's a geographical difference, that's a huge problem. But if you're not sure about trust, that's absolutely a good idea.
Well, Lynda, these are very interesting issues and topics to talk about, particularly to be prepared for the future. I did enjoy your website because a lot of this information is on your website, so we'll put it up on the screen. It's free of charge, which is beautiful. You get a lot of information free of charge just by going to your website, so I appreciate that. Thank you for joining us. We're going to actually come back with you and another guest in just a moment. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. I'm pleased to have David Spector join us, who is also the Director of Government Affairs with the Hinkle Law Firm with expertise in economic development. David, welcome to Latino Motion. And Lynda, welcome back.
Thank you. Bert, thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Dave, you're a local councilman, and one of the things that you've been involved not only as a council person, but also just the fact that you are the Government Affairs Director for the Hinkle Law Firm is economic development. Mm-hmm. Very important for the South Jersey region, and certainly you've been intimately involved with the Economic Development Opportunity Act, and you've seen it taking shape in the Camden area. Tell me a little bit about that act. What is it?
Yes. So the Economic Opportunity Act of 2013 was a big initiative that happened in the New Jersey legislature that was passed by both houses and signed by Governor Christie to bring economic growth to cities, especially like Camden, which has brought a lot of waterfront development and other projects to the community, which is a great way to promote business and bring attractions to the area. I think we see this being such a great resource for not just the local community, but for the surrounding towns and the surrounding places in our region. And I wish that more towns would follow that same sentiment of getting more business and business growth involved in their communities, because that's what the residents want.
Very, very important for the South Jersey area. And Lynda, just changing gears, so to speak here, from family law to government affairs at the local level, it seems like you guys are involved in a little bit of everything.
We are indeed, absolutely. But it's all about making sure our communities and families are stronger and happier.
And certainly economic development is a key for many towns.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the impact in the Camden area. We've seen a lot of development in the Camden area, and we're seeing it spread out as well to help the other communities around Camden. Tell me how that's working.
Yeah, I think you're seeing what it's done is it's given job opportunities to a lot of the local residents, and it's also put the building trades and organized labor in such a great place for job placement and opportunities for their membership. With companies like Subaru and Holtec International and Liberty Property Trust, the Sixers practice facility, you're really seeing Camden rise. And I think that's the goal. And I hope that other towns can follow that same path, because this is the wave of the future. And I think Camden is the model. And we all hope that this will be a great thing for their city.
Well, let's talk about other towns. So certainly Atlantic City is going through some real dynamic changes similar to what Camden was in terms of losing a lot of its economic base. Do you see something like this in Atlantic City working?
I think that's quite possible. With the Atlantic City takeover, which is not universally embraced, but also happened with Camden, I think there's opportunities for government to assist in bringing in opportunities that weren't previously there. Eds and Meds saved Camden, really, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for Eds and Meds in Atlantic City as well. Obviously, the casino issue is going to continue to be a problem, and the blight and the difficulties that the city is having recuperating funds. But there are ways of solving that problem. It's just not something that's going to happen quickly.
And we do see Stockton stepping up with opening up a facility in Atlantic City, so maybe that education part, the ed part, is coming. We're looking for the meds part, and
right.
Obviously we do have Atlantic Care here as well in the city that have made a strong contribution to the economic recuperation here in Atlantic City. So we hope to see some of that.
Absolutely.
There's also Bader Fee and other opportunities that we'll hope.
Atlantic City won't have some of the same opportunities that Camden does, because the way that the act was written, certain towns were focused on to provide incentives that aren't available to others. But there are incentives available to Atlantic City as well that are outside of what you would normally consider. And with the government takeover, there actually may be more.
Oh, good to know. How about the rest of South Jersey? Could they benefit from this act?
Yes, I think in a number of ways. I think when you may not be able to get the big companies like Camden has gotten, but I think other towns can have a very straightforward approach when it comes to economic development, because we all want different ratables and places where people can go to beautify their community, to have attractions. I think every town has a different dynamic, especially in New Jersey. And I think whether it's fine arts or restaurants or coffee shops or just redeveloping your own downtown where your residents can go is a great way to bring your community together. And I hope that we could see that in some of the towns in South Jersey going forward.
And some of the incentives available, honestly, are not huge requirements. For example, the tech industry is favored in the Economic Development Act in that you only really need 10 people in a tech facility to tap into some of these incentives. So small towns can actually use some of the sources for funding.
Have you seen other towns stepping up to the plate, so to speak, to
Yes.
get some of this funding?
Yes, absolutely. And there are opportunities out there to explore. Choose New Jersey. There's many different programs that enable you as a town to really focus on getting funding into your town to grow your economic situation.
And on that note, Bert, Grow New Jersey is actually one of the biggest incentive programs, and I think that that's something that local businesses and the communities need to focus on as well.
So if you're a business owner, whether it's a small business or a company, where should you turn to look for some of these resources?
It really depends on what you're looking for, honestly. And one of the things that we provide is opportunities to connect with different sources, and we do that both on a level of being hired, but also just helping the community because we like to do that.
And again, your website has a great deal of information, which is very helpful as well. Thank you so much for sharing this information. Very, very informative. And thank you for joining us at home once again here on Latino Motion.
Choose quality, value, distinction. Choose Stockton.
Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare, healthcare you can believe in. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas.